Hey everybody, Eric aka Core Geek here. So this is Epsilon Part 2 about how to apply it to foam. If you haven't watched Part 1, which I discussed the pros and cons of Epsilon for armor and prop building, you may want to go back and watch that. So without further ado, here we go. Here's how you apply Epsilon to your stuff. Here's what you'll need. Epsilon, of course. Cups for mixing. Foam brushes, a stir stick, some type of flat object. I like to use a pan covered in foil, and a scale. Epsilon's mixed at a 5:1 ratio. That's why there's so much more of the larger Epsilon bottle compared to the hardener bottle. If you've never used a scale for measuring product, you have to zero out the weight of the cup so it doesn't count on the weight of the scale. You do that by placing the cup on the scale and hitting the tare button. As I said earlier, Epsilon is mixed at a 5:1 ratio. I'm going to mix 50 grams of the Epsilon to 10 grams of the hardener. I already pre-measured the hardener, so it's going to show as 10 grams on the scale. So there's our final measurements. 50 grams of one, 10 grams of the other for the 5:1 ratio. This is a good amount for medium-sized projects as Epsilon spreads pretty far. Just keep in mind it's easier to add to by mixing more than mixing too much and wasting product. Prior to mixing and applying your Epsilon, you'll want to heat seal your foam. Just apply heat from a heat gun to the surface of the foam, and that'll help shrink the cells of the foam. Next, you'll want to mix your two parts together. I usually add the hardener to the resin and mix from there. Make sure while you're mixing that you are scraping the bottom and the sides thoroughly, and you should mix for about a minute. I cut out a whole bunch of time on here so you don't have to watch me mixing. Once it's fully mixed, pour it all out on your flat surface. Due to Epsilon having an exothermic reaction, this will keep the kick from happening a lot less faster, and you'll be able to use the product longer. I'm keeping about half of what I mixed in the cup so I can show you the difference between the two. Starting a stopwatch just to give me an idea of real working time. For application, to spread it like you would paint, you can go over it multiple times if you need to spread it out. I like to use the foam brushes because it leaves a lot less brush marks. If you're using Epsilon on foam armor pieces, I highly recommend you do the same amount of coats on both sides. I skipped about 5 minutes of brushing here. So that's it for a first coat. Once it's cured enough to where you touch it and the Epsilon doesn't come off on your finger, then you can go ahead and apply your second coat. You can also just wait the full cure time, which can take anywhere from 6 to 18 hours depending on the room temperature. Now back to the stopwatch. We're about 20 minutes into when I first originally mixed it, and as you notice, the Epsilon on the tray is still workable. It's thickened up a little bit, but you could still spread it if you needed to. Compare that to the cup, and it's completely cured at this point. It's rock hard. So that's the reason for spreading it out on the tray. Okay, so there you have it. It's not that difficult to apply Epsilon to foam. It just takes a little bit of time, the time for curing and the time to add extra coats. Now when it comes to other coats, I recommend you coat it at least 3 to 4 times. The Fierce DD Link sword that I showed before, I coated that 4 times. It was a really hard surface. So just be aware that you will need multiple coats, and you can just add the coats just like I showed here. It doesn't require another video because it's just adding more coats. Another thing you can do once you have all your coats done is you can use wood filler or spot filler on it as well. That's how you end up with a really nice smooth surface. Thanks as always for watching. I hope this video is informative to you and it helps you decide whether Epsilon's good for your project or not. Just keep in mind that Epsilon's not perfect. There's no perfect product out there, and it's going to depend on the project and what your expectations of it are, whether Epsilon works well for you or not. I do have a bonus video coming, and that'll be Epsilon compared to Epsilon Pro, which is a new product, and it has a little bit different properties. So keep an eye out for that next video. I hope to have it out sooner than I did
part 2 compared to part 1. So until then, have fun and go build something.